Good evening and welcome to the March 17, 2025 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to invite our friends Tripp and Bell to the podium to lead us in the pledge. If everyone can please rise. Perfect. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Making Waverly Elementary proud. Next item on our agenda is reflection. I'd like to call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you all very much. Next, we have approval of minutes tonight. We have before the council one set of minutes from the March 3rd meeting. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the minutes from the regular session of the City Council held on March 3rd, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, we have appointments. And tonight we have two different sets of appointments. The first one being appointments and reappointments to various committees. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move to appoint Catherine Daniels to a 2-year term to the Community Advisory Committee. Catherine Daniels from Dorsey Estates. For Amy McNulty from Saybrook to an indefinite term to the Gaithersburg Book Festival Committee. Jean Dinwiddie for Deer Park for a 3-year term to the Gaithersburg Park Arts and Recreation Corporation. Virginia Joel from Lakelands to a 3-year term to the Animal Control Board. Sheldon Pine from Wesley to a 3-year term to the Ethics Commission. Karen Matskin from North Potomac, a North Potomac resident, to a 3-year term to Gaithersburg Parks, Arts, and Recreation Corporation. Britta Monaco from Worther to a 2-year term, Senior Advisory Committee. Larry Seeger from Fernshear Farms to a 2-year term to the Transportation Committee.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, I abstain from this vote since my wife is one of the appointees.
All right, thank you.
I voted for her.
Thank you.
So that carries 4-0 with one abstention. Councilmember McNulty. Is anybody in the room whose name was just called? Okay, not seeing anybody. We'll thank them when we see them. Next, we have more appointments, and this is to HDC. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the resolution of the council confirming reappointments made by you to the Historic District Commission to a 3-year term, J. Rudolph Morgan from Hagerstown and Kathleen Ramirez from the Brooks Russell Walker Edition neighborhood.
Do we have a second? We have a second? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 5-0. Is anybody here whose name just got called? Okay, again, we'll thank them when we see them. A reminder, serving on a city committee is a wonderful way to contribute meaningfully to the business of the city of Gaithersburg. And we have a couple dozen committees with all kinds of different interests, depending on what you like to do, what your expertise is. It's a great way to get involved. So I recommend it, and we really are grateful for those who serve us in this way. Okay, next we're going to go into presentations. I'm going to invite Chief Soroka up to the podium, and I will join him, and we're going to do recognitions for our police department.
Yes.
Yeah.
It'll stop when it gets to the top, Chief.
Good evening. Tonight, we recognize officers and a civilian professional staff member for their efforts in the past year in promoting public safety and improving the quality of life in our community. I want to thank the recently promoted officer and the award recipients for your unwavering commitment to the city of Gaithersburg. It is a testament to your dedication and hard work. to our newly promoted officer, Brooke Vanderford. I look forward to the important new role you are assuming in the police department. You have an opportunity to further influence our culture, direction, and impact on the community. I am confident you will excel in your new role, just as you have done in your previous one. We are going to begin with the presentation of the promotional certificate, which will be followed by the presentations of awards. Promoted to the rank of corporal, Brooke Vanderford, and pinning the badge is her husband, Kevin. If the two of you could join me here, please.
Thank you.
Round of applause.
Okay, the first award that we're going to present this evening is the Officer of the Year. Officer Michael Camp has demonstrated a strong work ethic, dedication, and commitment to serving and protecting the citizens of Gaithersburg since he began his career as a police officer in July 2020. In 2024, Officer Camp was recognized for his exceptional performance 5 times, with 3 Officer of the Month awards and 2 Commander's recognitions. He volunteers to take on extra tasks, such as assisting with DUI standardized field sobriety testing, instruction, and training at the Academy, serves as a field training officer, joined the Shift 7 training team and the department's firearms instructor training team, totaling more than 200 hours of training provided last year. Officer Camp led the department with 108 DUI arrests and issued 1,287 traffic citations, reinforcing the department's goal of traffic safety. When not engaged in traffic enforcement, Officer Camp is effective in proactive criminal enforcement, making 37 criminal arrests. He does not hesitate to step in and step up. In one such example, in March 2024, there was a pattern of commercial burglaries, typically smash and grab, occurring in the city during the overnight and early morning hours. Officers were unable to arrive fast enough prior to the departure of the suspects. Due to this limitation, Officer Camp began proactively and persistently patrolling small business stores that included jewelry, tobacco, and bank check cashing stores. This led to the arrests of 4 suspects and the recovery of stolen merchandise minutes after committing the most recent burglary on April 1st. In a time of heightened scrutiny of police officers' actions, Officer Camp attained these results without receiving a single citizen's complaint, likely due in large part to his calm demeanor, patience, and professionalism. It is for these reasons that Officer Michael Camp is the 2024 Officer of the Year. Officer Camp. Next is the Supervisor of the Year. Corporal Doug Seek sustained exemplary performance during 2024, not only through his individual enforcement efforts, but more significantly by contributing to the success of Shift 7 and the department through his investigative experience, leadership, and his dedication to his supervisory duties. In the months of February and May, he took on the role of acting sergeant and sole supervisor for Shift 7, responsible not only for the well-being of the officers, but all the administrative and supervisory responsibilities that running a patrol shift entails. However, despite the circumstances, Corporal Seek thrived, successfully managing several critical incidents, recognizing the accomplishments of officers, and completing the documentation resulting from violent offenders. Even more impressively this year, Corporal Seek didn't just maintain his commitment to his collateral duties, but significantly increased his responsibilities by volunteering to assist with the defensive tactics training team and learning Spanish. Corporal Seek embodies the kind of drive and commitment to both the community and the department that models and inspires others to attain, thus furthering the positive culture on his shift and the department. Corporal Seek exemplifies the concept of leading by example, frequently making proactive stops resulting in arrest. He led all patrol supervisors in handling 952 calls for service, 422 traffic infractions documented, 22 DUI arrests, along with making 9 criminal arrests. Corporal Seek fosters a strong sense of shift identity and teamwork, leading by example through both his own actions and his support of others. For all these contributions to the department and the community, Corporal Doug Seek is the 2024 Supervisor of the Year.
No, it's okay. We're good.
Next is our 2024 Professional Staff Member of the Year. If you ask people what they think of when they offer a viewpoint about a police department, they often mention the obvious, something about police officers. Very rarely do you hear someone mention the professional staff members who help make the department run. For many people who interact with a member of the police department, it generally will be an officer on the streets. But for others, it could be someone at the front desk counter as they inquire about city services, a crime analyst who participates in a Shop with a Cop event, or an IT specialist mentoring a group of Cub Scouts. When we talk about the Gaithersburg Police Department and those within, they embody our core values of service, integrity, and respect. And when we think about the value service, we think of Carolyn Consoli. If you know Carolyn, then you know that she is not only a positive and happy person, but she is also a dedicated individual who is committed to service. Carolyn currently serves as the department's CALIA accreditation manager and property evidence custodian, a demanding job and one that requires her to be attentive and up to date on best practices. In spite of her workload, Carolyn is always willing to assist with any project, provide input on decisions, and is always offering her support to others. This past year, she took the lead with the planning of the move from our old police station to the current one. She met with department staff to discuss their needs and made sure they had what they needed. She developed a plan and ensured the transition was seamless. Not only was there the logistics of moving, but there was the integration of new policies and training. Carolyn took the lead in researching and assisting the command staff with the implementation of the policies and training. Carolyn makes herself available to staff at all hours, including when she is on leave. She routinely checks and responds to citizen, officer, and command staff inquiries, and it is not unusual for Carolyn to respond to the station when she is scheduled to be off to help anyone in need of her assistance. Carolyn is thoughtful to not only department staff, but the community. She routinely offers to help with community outreach events, either by participating or by donating items to be handed out to community members. It is for these reasons and many more that Ms. Carolyn Consoli is the department's 2024 Professional Employee of the Year. Carolyn, if you come up. The final award this evening is the unit citation. The investigative section had a busy year with several highlights to include working with the Maryland Office of the Attorney General towards several successful indictments for the first time in the department's history. They served an out-of-state search warrant for the first time in over a decade and worked with the United States Department of Justice to ensure a repeat violent offender is once again in prison. Certainly, the success of the investigative section would not have been possible without teamwork and selflessness. The detectives in this unit were tasked not only with routine cases, but with complex, multi-jurisdictional investigations involving different prosecutorial bodies. They completed police and civilian background investigations, completed truth verification examinations for police applicants and allied agencies. Additionally, the investigative section handled 7 internal affairs investigations involving both police and civilian employees, completed 22 computer voice stress analysis examinations, and completed 12 police and 14 civilian background investigations. The investigative section detectives wrote 59 search warrants, and they made 55 adult arrests and 23 juvenile arrests. Every detective in the investigative section sacrificed personal time to ensure the needs of the unit were met. The teamwork and dedication displayed by the investigative section led to the individual success of each detective and the collective success of the unit, furthering the guiding principles and mission of the police department. A unit citation is awarded to the investigative section, consisting of Detective Sergeant Michelle Kirk, Detective Corporal Robert Schrey, Detective Noah Grubik, Detective Gabriella Wright, and Detective Andrew Brem for their performance in 2024 that is deemed exceptional.
It wouldn't be right for them to share.
That's right.
That would not right.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Thank you
very much.
Before we continue, can we just get one more round of applause for our department? We are truly, truly proud. Next on our agenda, we are going to receive a presentation from the Ad hoc Mayor and Council Compensation Review Committee, which is something that we do by law every 4 years. I'd like to invite Trevor Ruschik, I hope I pronounced that correctly, to the podium or to the table, whichever. Yeah. Trevor, how did I do with your name?
Basically there.
Okay.
Thank you all very much. To
Thank
begin,
you.
I want to say a special thank you to my my other members of the committee, especially Joe and Brian, who helped me personally through this. First time being on a committee, so I've had a lot of fun, and especially, like you said, this beginning of the meeting, getting to get involved and give back to my own city.
We're very grateful. And I would just join you in saying we're grateful to all the members of this committee for their service.
And I also want to thank Kimberly and Bobby for the help that they also give myself, but also the fellow committee members. They are fantastic, and a round of applause needs to go out to them as well. They did a fantastic job.
Let's do it.
To begin, I'll cover a little bit of the legal background. So sections 5 and 16 of the city charter establish the salary and benefits of the mayor and members of the city council and provide for periodic adjustments of those amounts. Section 5A specifically of the city charter provides for the mayor to appoint, with the committee concurrence, a advisory committee quadrennially to review the compensation and benefits of the mayor and council and to make recommendations whether any adjustments should be made. The ad hoc committee's recommendations are purely advisory, in nature and are non-binding. To begin, a little bit of a general background. For the current mayor and city council salaries, the mayor, $36,993. Council members, 4 of them taking $29,595, and 1 of them opting to have $27,714, adjusted annually in an amount equal to the compensation of the consumer index, price index, all urban consumers, or the CPI-U, for Washington metropolitan region, November versus preceding November is plus 1%. For the benefits available, there are medical, dental, vision, long-term care, life, death, and dismemberment. Officials pay 100% of the premium costs. However, each receive annual stipend of $4,851.08 towards purchase of benefits, adjusted every 4 years. And the next scheduled adjustment is for July 1st, 2026. Any funds not used to purchase city benefits may be credited to the elected officials' 557 retirement plan or be taken as salary in each payroll period at the elected official's option. Elected officials may decline or any portion of the annual salary benefits provided. As for the ad hoc committee's approach to the mayor and council compensation, our committee convened multiple times to assess historical data. General fairness, citizens' expectations were key considerations, sought best comparative data from other jurisdictions within the local area, as well as comparable cities around the United States. Extensive consideration was also given to the levels of effort required and the additional effort expended by the mayor and the city council members on behalf of the city and its citizens. To begin the recommendations, we'll first cover the salary adjustments. As for the annual adjustments, the committee recommends no change in the annual adjustment process, which as it stands prevents salary decreases and provides a modest recognition of service and merit. Specifically, the committee continues to recommend that the mayor and the council shares shall be adjusted effective July 1st each year by the year-over-year increase, if any, in the CPI-U for the metropolitan Washington region as established in the November report, which is plus 1%. For the recommendations for the benefits, just as before, there may be present or future officials that could receive the benefit stipend of $4,851.08 fully towards the benefits and or paid out in salary rather than exclusively dedicated to benefits. The committee also recommends that no changes in the annual benefit flexibility policy. As for the boards, commissions, and committee stipends, there's approximately 20 active appointed bodies. Stipends currently provided to members of 3 bodies, the Planning Commission, Board of Appeals, and the Historical District Commission. And those current stipends are $3,000 for the Planning Commission members, $1,500 for the Board of Appeals members, and $1,500 for the Historic District Commission members as well. Because there's no adjustments for these amounts since 2007 or 2011, the ad hoc committee recommends an increase of these stipends, which is to follow. The newly recommended stipend amounts would be $4,000 for the Planning Commission members, which is a $1,000 increase, $2,000 for the Board of Appeal members, which is a $500 increase, and just as well for the Historical District Commission, a $500 increase, making it $2,000. And for this, our justifications are the recognition of the increased workloads for these members, cost of living adjustments, and also to address the extended stipend stagnation, where there was not much movement or, in our opinion, matching with other adjustments in the county. And that is our report for the year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The recommendations seem very reasonable to me, but I want to open it up for council members if anyone wants to say anything. Obviously, we're not making a decision tonight on it, but if you have any feedback, please go ahead,
I
Jamil.
just had a clarifying question. Did we not talk about a stipend for the Board of Supervisor elections?
Tanisha?
Yes,
I mean, my memory might be off on that. But.
No, it's not. The committee is charged with reviewing current.
Okay.
So those will be proposed in the budget.
Okay.
they don't review those because they are not in place
Okay,
yet.
but that's coming in the budget. All right.
Correct.
That was it. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
You know, I
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
no, I think it's spot on. I support the increases. Of course, the planning commission members present would owe us beers. No, I'm just kidding. But I also do support, and I'll raise this again. Thank you, Councilmember Hernandez, for raising it. Bose is the other charter commission, and they don't receive a stipend. So I'd be supportive of them receiving the stipend, at least commensurate with Board of Appeals or Historic District Commission, or maybe less. I don't know.
That's the plan.
Okay.
Great, Jim.
I just want to say thank you to the committee. I agree with my colleagues. I support the increases for the boards, especially the planning commission does a lot of work, and it's a lot of work goes into it. It's really important work, so I appreciate that and the recognition of the committee and the time it takes to analyze the data from all those different places. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, round of applause. For you too, Joe. You guys, you deserve it too. Okay, next on our agenda is public comments. It's the time the mayor and council like to hear from anybody who'd like to testify on any matter that's not a public hearing matter. Tonight we do have 2 public hearings. If you wish to speak on them, hold off. We're going to get to those next. But if you want to speak on anything else, we ask that you come up to the podium, state your name and address, or neighborhood if you prefer, for the record. Keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. If you have more than 3 minutes worth of material, use your 3 minutes and send us the rest in writing. It'll be considered just the same. Is there anybody in the room who'd like to testify on anything? Okay, not seeing. Let me just check on Zoom. Is there anybody on Zoom who'd like to testify under public comments? Again, if you want to speak on either of our 2 public hearings, just hold off. But if you'd like to speak, use the raise hand function, and I will call on you. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands go up. So we're going to move into our joint public hearing. And I'm going to invite the members of the Planning Commission to join us up here. And Samuel Copeland from our Planning Department is going to lead us in this presentation.
I was just kidding about those beers.
I wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
I'm going to do a stipend to the Ethics Commission too then.
Yes. Kind of like buying them all.
Control again.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. This is a joint public hearing on Schematic Development Plan Application STP-9896-2024. As shown on the screen, the subject properties are located at 10003 and 10009 Fields Road. The applicant is requesting approval to demolish the existing restaurant building at 10009 Fields Road and construct a new 5,106 square foot automatic car wash facility. The plan also includes the removal of an existing car wash building at 10003 Fields Road. This building will be replaced with 10 new parking spaces. As indicated in the staff report, staff notes that part of the discussion should include whether the proposed use is in conformance with the master plan. The hearing was duly advertised in the Washington Post on February 27th and March 6th, and published on the city's website on February 21st. At the present time, there are 43 exhibits in the record files. They are referenced in an exhibit list, and the individual exhibits may be reviewed on the city website and at the City Hall during regular office hours. Any objection to the receipt of any exhibits should be noted prior to the closing of the record. Otherwise, they will be deemed received in evidence. Here to present the application this evening is Pat Harris with Lurch, Early & Brewer.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Pat Harris with Lurch Early and Brewer here on behalf of the applicant, who's the contract ground lessee of the property, and that's WLR Automotive Group. Chad Bond, who is the Acquisitions and Development Director, is joining virtually. He had previously scheduled business out of town, but with me this evening also are Mike Berklin and Andreza Danelski from Bowler Engineering, and then we have Carl Wilson from the Traffic Group.
Welcome, all.
So as staff had indicated, the property involves two sites, 1009 Fields Road and 10003 Fields Road. And I'm just going to say 9 and 3 for now on, if that's acceptable.
That works. Sure.
Thank you. And the property is before you and outlined in yellow. It's at the apex of the overall site, and it's surrounded on the south by Fields Road, by Washington Boulevard on the north, and also the Washington Boulevard ramp. A closer in aerial shows that the 9 property is consists of just over 65,000 square feet of land area, and it has a existing building that was previously dedicated to restaurant use. It's about 5,800 square feet, and then, as you can see, it's surrounded by parking. This is the site where the proposed relocation of the car wash, which is currently on the 3 site, will occur. And that site, on the right-hand side of your screen, exists currently of a car wash, a lube center, a C-store, a gas station, and a restaurant, which, by all accounts, I've heard very good things about.
Great tacos.
We heard that more than once. This is just a couple shots of the existing conditions on the site. On the top 2 photos are of the prior restaurant site, and then down below is the gas station lube car wash site. So unfortunately, like a lot of retail and restaurant uses, this site, that I'm talking about, the 9 site now, really started struggling before COVID, but COVID really put the nail in the coffin on this site. In 2020, it was vacated. The property was actively marketed by the owners, engaged KLNB, the brokerage firm, to try to find a viable use for the site. So for 5 years, there was no interest at all from any office-type users, and to the extent they received any interest from retailers, or your standard-type retailers, the offers were anemic at best. As we know, there's a significant amount of competition not too far from this site in downtown Crown, where you have ground floor retail in a more mixed-use, pedestrian-friendly environment, which presents a lot of competition for a site like the subject site. The property is zoned MXD, and it was part of the overall Washingtonian annexation that involved, believe it or not, 4.5 million square feet of mixed use back in the early 90s. Subsequent to that, there was a schematic development plan that was approved that included the site, as you can see it highlighted in yellow at the left. And then subsequently, in 1997, and I'm going to focus on the gas station site for a moment. In 1997, the gas station was approved for the mixed uses that I identified, the restaurant, lube, car wash, C-store, and the gas station, with the final site plan. And then 2 years later, the site with the restaurant was approved. The development proposal involves, as I said, the relocation of the existing car wash on the 3 site over to the 9 site, and proposed in a just over 5,100 square foot structure. There would be 22 vacuum stalls on the site, 6 standard parking spaces, and the site has an overall green area of 42% of the overall site, which is very generous. The standard is 25%. The next slide just indicates the preliminary architecture that would be present on the site. And then this site slide shows the landscaping. As you can see from the two insets from different sites, WLR really takes pride in their landscaping. They put a lot of effort into it. In fact, one of the things that, assuming that this moves forward, that we'd like to talk to DOT, who the county actually has the ownership of the area on the left-hand side of the screen, is whether there's the chance to enhance that area as well, so we can really do a top-notch landscaping presentation here. Staff had inquired about the queuing on the site. This diagram shows more queuing than what is anticipated. WLR has 14 car washes in the Mid-Atlantic, and based on their experience at all of those sites, the queuing doesn't exceed the length of the building. But what this slide shows is that an additional 6 cars can be accommodated very easily. And I would note that the two aisles closest to the building are what are called membership lanes, and so they run by use of a fob, so there's not a delay in the transaction. The car really just moves through the booth in about a 2-second transaction and then proceeds into the building for the car wash. The other thing I'd note is that this exhibit also shows there are 6 parking spaces for employees. And we will also be proposing, because of the way the zoning ordinance is written, the vacuum stalls actually count as parking spaces. So I'll get to that at the very end of our presentation, but we are seeking, and this would not come up until final site plan, but we would need a parking waiver in order to accommodate those additional vacuum stalls. On the I called it the 3 site because actually there's 3 addresses on that site, 3, 5, and 7, I believe, but so our screen says 5. But on the site adjacent, the changes include the elimination of the car wash, the increase of parking spaces to add 4 new parking spaces, and then shifting the drive aisles in order to really facilitate the circulation on that site. Now I'm going to get into sort of the meats of the presentation, which is the compliance with the 7 requirements of the zoning code. We address each one of these on a separate slide, so I'm not going to go through each one right at the moment. But the first requirement is that the plan is in substantial accordance with the approved sketch plan. The approved sketch plan approved commercial use on the property of 5,500 square feet. As I noted, our use is slightly less than that, but still comparable size and similar use of commercial use. The next requirement is that the plan meets the objectives and standards of the zone. As noted, the property is zone MXTD. The intent of that zone is to provide flexible approach to multiple use projects and orderly stage development. The proposal would provide for auto center uses we're actually essentially maintaining the existing uses on the site in that there's an auto-related use, a restaurant, and a convenience store, and all of those will remain. So it's the same mix of uses. We're just simply replacing one car wash on one site and moving it over to the other site. The setbacks, height, and buffering areas are established by the schematic development plan. The proposed height is 28 feet, and there are generous building setbacks ranging 70 feet, 49 feet, and 85 feet. One of the requirements is that the structure be at least 60 feet from any residentially zoned area, and our closest residentially zoned area is 250 feet away. As noted, the green area, we greatly exceed the 25% requirement with 42% green area. And then within the parking lot itself, there's a 10% requirement, and the proposal is 13.5%, or I'm sorry, 12.8%. And then as I previously noted, we're proposing 6 parking spaces. The ordinance requires or limits the number of standard parking spaces to 4. So we have 2 extras, plus we have those 22 vacuum stalls. I touched on the green area and the landscaping. So let me go to the next requirement, which is the plan is in accordance with the master plan. So the July 1997 master plan, which was then reaffirmed by the 2009 land use element, had a number of recommendations for the site, but the first specific designation was that the uses on the site should be commercial, industrial, research, or office. And these land use designations are really the North Star in terms of, okay, what can you do on the site? Clearly, a car wash is a commercial use. So by all accounts, it satisfies that land use designation requirement. The master plan also says that the designation will, quote, allow a use that is consistent with the mixed-use commercial development. And as I noted, we're not changing the mix of uses on the 9 site and the 3 site. And then it goes on to say that these uses such as office, restaurant, and highway convenience services, and then it closes by saying that the uses that are encouraged would be high-rise office buildings with ancillary commercial retail businesses within the office building structure. What has occurred to date is the most important thing in determining whether the project is in accordance with the master plan. And what I mean by that is the master plan was adopted in 1997 in July. 2 months after that, in September, the 3 site was approved. And what did that site have on it? In addition to the lube center and the C-store and the gas station and the restaurant, it also had a car wash. So we know that car washes are consistent with the master plan. Since that time, as I said, that all we're doing is replacing one car wash and moving it over to the other site. I think it's the mix of uses is being maintained, and we don't believe that the proposed use, while it's a larger car wash, but we're not changing the mix of uses because there is a C-store there and a restaurant. There's still continues to be a mix of uses. It's not changing into exclusively auto-related types of uses in this area. The master plan also used, as I noted, it had a term that said that the site should include such uses as highway convenience services, which sounds really nice until you try to figure out what does that even mean. And there was no definition in the prior zoning ordinance of what highway convenience service meant. And we actually tried to dig into that by looking at various ULI manuals or planning manuals and really came up empty-handed. So relying on the plain language of those words, highway convenience services, it suggests that the use should be auto-oriented and proximate to the highway for the convenience of the customer. And, and this site certainly is those things. And as we know from the city's consideration a couple years ago of a car wash that actually fronted on a residential street, that's not where you want your car washes. And this site is a very different site, certainly. So we feel very strongly that the project is in accordance with the master plan, but in the event that the Planning Commission and Mayor and Council think differently, we are suggesting an alternative approach could be made as well, because what the zoning ordinance provides also is if a use is not in accordance with the master plan, alternatively, it says it shall conform to the comprehensive master plan unless the Planning Commission finds that events have occurred to render the master plan recommendations no longer relevant. And in this case, we think there are a number of things that have occurred that would render the master plan no longer relevant if, in fact, you thought that the use wasn't in accordance with the master plan. And those things include, first of all, that as I said, the original master plan was adopted in 1997, and then the validation or reaffirmation, I should say, of the 97 recommendations were in the 2009 master plan. But in 2010 is when the retail market really hit a large bump, and we had the beginning of the retail apocalypse, in the throes of the Great Recession. Since 2010, the retail market has continued to decline, and then in 2020, it sort of just made a bad situation much worse, and then extended the difficulties and the challenges to the office market as well. I mean, one only needs to look at some of the data in the county or the region as a whole in terms of office development to know that office development on a site like this would be extremely challenging. And the fact that in 5 years there's been absolutely no interest supports that. There's also a physical restriction in that when the recommendation was originally made that this should be a high-rise, potentially a high-rise office development, they were referring to the entire site, both the gas station site and the prior restaurant site, which was about 116,000 square feet. Then once the gas station site developed, all you were left with was, approximately half of that area surrounded on 3 sides by roads, and it makes it very challenging. So we believe that that a number of things have changed since the master plan was adopted that would allow the body to make the finding that the master plan is no longer relevant. Then in terms of the remaining requirements, and I'll fly through these fairly quickly, the requirement is that the plan is compatible with the existing and planned land uses in the MXD. Again, we're just simply replacing one use with another. And I'd also offer that because the existing car wash is actually closer to residential, if you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, the area outlined in white, than where if it were relocated further to the left. So we believe that it's actually a better location. There are adequate public facilities to serve the use. There are 40 a.m., 62 p.m., and 97 Saturday peak hour additional trips. And that may sound like a lot, but when you actually break it down and say, what does that really mean? In the a.m., it's 1 new vehicle every 3 minutes. In the p.m., 1 new vehicle every 2 minutes. And on Saturday, 1 new vehicle every 75 seconds. And all of the surrounding intersections are below the 1425 threshold of acceptability in the critical lane volume. We also did a queuing and gap analysis at the suggestion of staff to further support the fact that there's APF for the use. And there's adequate water, service, police, and fire to serve the use. This is just some backup information in terms of traffic. And then the plan is in the public interest. We're converting a vacant site to a viable use. I don't think it's in anyone's best interest to have a vacant site just sitting there for years and years. So we believe that increasing the landscaping, provided a viable use, is in the public interest, and it's providing a need, replacing the one car wash with the other. We'll also be improving the frontages around all 3 sides of the property. Finally, in terms of the future parking waiver, as I said, there's actually 2 waivers that we would be requesting. One is that the width of parking spaces is 9 feet, and for the vacuum stalls, we would be proposing a 14-foot width. That's so that people can open their doors and lean over and vacuum their car, and there's room to do that to do it safely while your neighbor's sort of vacuuming their car as well. And then, as noted, we're proposing 2 additional parking spaces for employees for a total of 6, plus the 22 vacuum stalls, so that there would be a requested parking waiver of an additional 24 spaces, though really it's only 2 typical parking spaces, if you will. So with that concludes our presentation. I wanted to just note that we, as I said before, we think it's an opportunity to convert a vacant site into attractive, meaningful, well-landscaped commercial service. We meet all the requirements of the zone. We believe we're consistent with the master plan recommendations, and it does not result in any net increases of car washes in the city, which I know there may be some sensitivity to that, which is why I probably mentioned 5 times in my presentation or more that we're just replacing one car wash with another car wash. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat, for the presentation. I think one of the foundational questions we're going to have to discuss up here is about master plan compliance. I think you made a pretty comprehensive case for both sides of it, that it aligns with the master plan, but if it doesn't, we have this other rationale we can apply. And I know you're aware that our staff disagree. They're not giving us an absolute vehement, don't you dare approve this kind of advice, but I think they would like to see us have a real discussion about this and what the alignment is. Is it, before I turn, and I'm going to have the planning, because this is kind of a technical element that we're looking at, I'm going to bring it to the planning commission first, and then we'll have the mayor and council discuss it. But is there anything else you wanted to say about our staff's position here, or do you feel like you've made that case the way that you want to make it?
I think you summarized it well in that I think staff had concerns, but I don't think staff they didn't express to us that they were vehemently staked out in that position. I would like the opportunity, if questions come up, if that's acceptable, to answer questions.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I would just reiterate, and this was the one thing that I was having a hard time given the fact that the adjacent site was approved with the same master plan recommendation in place, and a car wash was approved there in 1997, right after the master plan was adopted, that to me says it all, that if it was approved under the master plan recommendation in 1997 and it's the same recommendation today, why couldn't a car wash just simply relocate to this site? So that, to me,
Do you think the presence of the restaurant made a difference there in terms of, you can make an argument there's a better mix of uses with the restaurant there?
Well, I would say overall, if you thought about it 5 years ago, you could say the net change would be one less restaurant, but the restaurant's already gone. There's it's vacant. For all intents and purposes, there's nothing on that site now. So what has existed for the last 5 years is not changing. It's simply a relocation of one of the uses over to this lot that's been vacant for 5 years.
Okay,
But
fair point.
but let me also just say, but even so, even if you were going to consider the restaurant, you still have a mix of uses. You still have a restaurant, you just don't have 2 restaurants. And you have a C-store, which isn't auto-related, it's a C-store.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to John Bauer from our planning commission, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about this question.
Fair enough. Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the presentation. A couple of kind of foundational questions before I get into any kind of comments or discussion. What is the throughput on the existing car wash, and what is the proposed throughput on the new one? In any kind of format you might have. Number of cars per hour, number of cars per day, whatever it might be.
So for the existing, I don't know that, but we can get you that. And for the proposed.
'Cause I think, to be fair, not to cut you up, I'm sorry, you made the argument that this is replacing an old car wash with a new one. It's a fundamentally different scale, though. It's much larger, much more dedicated, much more about its own set of operations, its own kind of business model. Whereas the existing one, I just have to say it before we get too much further, the existing one is really part of a little portfolio of uses within a single kind of business environment. And that's a big difference in a mixed-use development. So I don't want to gloss over that. So I think that data is very important to understand how much of a change in magnitude this is going to propose, because on the plan, it's big, it's a lot. It's a fundamental change in that traffic pattern and the amount of cars that are going to be on the site, right? The other thing I wanted to ask you was, you leaned heavily into how ridiculous it sounded to put a high-rise office building on the site, and I agree. I mean, I'm not faulting you for that. But you talked about retail and you talked about office, but you never really brought up restaurant. And we're seeing a lot of restaurant pad development around the city. So the question is, where's the viability for that on this site? Or what sort of background can you offer on that?
I spoke to the representative, and I should have noted that both sites are owned by the same owner, and so I spoke to a representative of the owner who explained to me what the brokerage history was in terms of marketing the project for the last 5 years. And what he said to me is they had a handful of potential retail or restaurant type. He didn't say restaurant. He just said
Yeah, see, that's
retail
different.
type
That's
uses.
entirely different use.
And that they were not financially feasible offers. But I don't know, and I'd have to go back and ask whether, when he said retail, was he also including restaurant? I don't know that. The one thing I would say about restaurant is, and it's great that the place next door is so successful, but when you think about all the ground floor retail restaurant type spaces, not just a couple of blocks away, that potentially offer more attractive outdoor dining areas. I mean, given the fact that this is surrounded by 3 roads, it doesn't really present itself for an attractive outdoor dining experience.
Maybe different dining, because we have examples of it around the city. So it's just something to look a little harder at.
And if I could, going back to your other point, we acknowledge the fact that this car wash is larger than the existing one. In terms of a percentage of the overall square footage that was approved under the sketch plan for this area, which was 400,000 square feet, it's a 1% difference. But we don't quibble with the fact that this is a different kind of car wash than the other.
Yeah, yeah. And kind of the last question before kind of more of a discussion point or two. Say what you will about the master plan or the actual provisions of the MXD zone. There's a lot more in the MXD zone purposes and objectives than I think what you cited on the slide. And one of the fundamental threads is what it does to improve and increase pedestrian and people, the quality of the experience for people and pedestrians through the projects that are approved within an MXD zone. So you have the mix of uses, but you also have this commitment to making them work within a pedestrian environment. Before we get sidetracked on the idea this is bounded on 3 sides by busy streets and all that, there are sidewalks, there are local residential areas that could take advantage of whatever happens on this site by pedestrians and by residents. As kind of a matter of fact, this doesn't head in that direction. This heads the other direction. This heads more toward vehicle-based, vehicle-dependent use. Even though right next door, I get it, there's a service station, there's a convenience store, but there's a compactness to that and there's a singleness to that something else could complement that was not so vehicle-oriented. So did you all take a look at that portion of the MXD objective?
We are aware of it, and I guess I would say, first of all, we're not changing the entrance to the site, and we are improving the sidewalk experience around the site. And the use itself sits within the center of the site and is surrounded, and you can see from the picture on the screen a little bit, by fairly generous landscaping. So I think in that way, we are improving the pedestrian experience. But granted, obviously, anyone that comes to this site is going to drive to this site because they're getting their car washed.
Yeah.
It's like driving to a gas station.
And frankly, the site won't be activated except for a limited period during the day because obviously they don't work at night. They're not open at night. They're not.
No, but they do have creative lighting that during the night. So it's not operational. But I mean, from a visual standpoint, it's not sitting vacant as the site currently has been for 5 years.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you for that. Go ahead, Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to quote part of the findings under the zone city code. Subsection 4 says, "The plan will be internally and externally compatible and harmonious with existing and planned land uses." I haven't heard you say the word harmonious. I've heard you going kind of skirting around. It could fit in, could do this, just what you were referring to the chairman just before. But can you explain how, in your estimation, this would be harmonious within that
with the
area?
Surrounding area?
Yeah.
I guess a number of things. One is there's often a battle in jurisdictions about curb cuts and interfering with pedestrian traffic. The fact that we're maintaining the existing curb cut and not adding others. The fact that the landscaping requirement is 25% and we're adding additional landscaping to the tune of 42%, I think adds to the overall harmony. I think from an aesthetic standpoint, I think it's visually an interesting building, and I think that adds to the compatibility of the surrounding area. Now, I think if we're honest with ourselves, there's not exactly like a themed architecture going on in this immediate area, but I think that the architecture and is harmonious with the other surrounding uses.
See, I would push back a little bit and say you've got the confluence of Fields Road and Sam Ike. You've got two major developments, Rio and Crown. This is a gateway. It's not just something that's standing in the middle of a highway. It is a gateway to the city. And for that reason, that's why I asked you about the question being harmonious.
Right. And I think, and I touched on this, at the apex of the property, we, assuming we can go forward, and we had shared this with staff, one of our intents is to work with the county in an effort to try to make that area more of a gateway, whether it's signage, whether it's additional landscaping, whether it's an art feature, something that says, welcome to this area of Gaithersburg. And let's be honest, the restaurant that was there for so many years, I don't know that had any particular feature that really promoted any harmonious function, really.
Well, it was unique. It was in the shape, if you will, of an Asian pagoda kind of building, which had replaced a pie stand before that. But anyway, I appreciate your response, and I'll yield.
Hi. I just have a couple of observations and then questions. And so actually this morning I was down at downtown Crown for a business meeting. And in leaving, I did really notice again that this property was not contiguous with downtown Crown, that it really was a hard area to walk in for a pedestrian, primarily because it's bordered by two highways, and that the third, if we brought up the map again, the third section is actually a tennis court there. So there's really not, I didn't see a cut through there that this would be a pathway to really walk it, unless you're walking at your own risk there. It's a very busy intersection there, and that even according to your written statement, that a portion of the property does fall within the as you state, the Montgomery County Department of Transportation right-of-way. So if we just brought up the property there, yeah, that, the majority of the perimeter of the property is actually adjacent either to a major intersection road there, Fields Road, or, on-ramps to a highway. So I just wanted to see that there. And then also, too, that it's an irregular shape for development, and that actually I was on the Board of Appeals with the City of Gaithersburg for 20 years and served the last 5 as chair. And this definitely would be something to look at, if it would have come before the Board of Appeals. And so if you could just point out the entrance that the cars would go in, it's just that one entrance right there.
Correct. That's the existing entrance, which would be maintained.
Okay. Okay.
And then I didn't realize that I had a cursor that worked. So just this is the little area that I was referring to. Otherwise, it may prevent a gateway type opportunity.
So that's the right of way there that
correct
that you would have to gain
yes.
the permission to use there.
Right.
Okay.
We wouldn't obtain we would just ask for permission to enhance it.
Hopefully, that's with the county, not the state. Okay.
Good, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
That's
great. Hello. I guess I'll make it a little simpler. So, for me, anyway, I think there's very clear master plan textual precedent for this use. I think it's a unique site with an enormous amount of physical constraints to it that don't allow for the other litany of master plan uses that perhaps we would like to see in some idealized world. I think that John's point that we do have some of these examples in the city is correct, of sort of standalone, surrounded by parking, restaurant uses, but they are not all excelling. And I think it is something of an antiquated typology. So I don't see any master plan reason to reject this use based on the master plan language that we have now. And despite Pat's emotional abuse of us, bringing up the great financial collapse and COVID, I think we should be aspirational, but I don't see it on this site. It's too physically constrained, and doesn't actually contribute to our pedestrian environment. So, using it for what is otherwise a valid auto-based use is great. So, that's all.
All right, thanks, Planning Commission. We're just going to go start on one end and go to the other. Jamil, we're going to start with you.
Sure. I just have a clarifying, maybe semi-technical question on, I was reading through the traffic report, and it's very nice to see, you saw the additional volume that it would generate, also the volume generated by the school, Crown High School, in there. In terms of getting the timing when those studies were done, did they take into account, so you added the volume, but how about the capacity that's being removed for the rapid bus lanes that were recently installed? How did that play into?
I'm going to turn it over to Carl Wilson.
Sure.
Sure. My name's Carl Wilson. I'm with the Traffic Group. We prepared the traffic impact study for the site. The counts for the weekday were collected in May 2023. We went back out on Saturday to collect Saturday counts in November 2024. And we used the current lane uses out there, and then the future lane uses that you're referring to are all part of the report that came up with adequate critical lane volumes for the.
But they weren't acted at that time, were they? I think the
November 2024,
were
maybe.
they? I don't remember that time.
They may have been.
Yeah, and I believe as part of that revision, we did actually update some of the lane uses in the report to show.
I didn't realize it was quite that recent, but yeah, I think the bus was active at that point because I was at the launch. I want to say it was in September for that.
Yeah, so again, we were requested to do the Saturday counts because the volume that the car wash generates is a little bit higher on Saturday than it is during the AM and PM peak period. So we just went out there again and did those additional observations.
So just to
on
clarify, so
Saturday.
I understand the counts that we see in the reports and the amendment information takes into account the capacity that's now no longer usable by regular
Yes.
drivers because it's dedicated solely for the bus.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you all for the presentation. I'm going to agree with Councilmember Commissioner Hopkins. I just promoted you, Matt, or demoted you, depending on how you want to look at it. But the use itself doesn't bother me, and I think I said as much during the sketch plan. Right now, the owner's not getting any value out of this space. But as Commissioner Kaufman pointed out, how it's going to interact with the surrounding areas, I think, is where I get the most concern. I've tried to make that left-hand turn to go to the taco bar, to the gas station. It's really that left turn coming in off of Sam Ige across fields where I have the most concern. And, looking at the site aerial, if there was an opportunity to come in on that northeast corner off of Washingtonian Boulevard and eliminate the left turn across that traffic, then I would feel a lot better about circulation on the site, so that it's not creating that conflict point for left hand turn. So you close the median, you get a right in, right out only going in, and then people that are coming from Sam Ige would go up the ramp and then come in off of Washington. I don't know if the site topology prevents that, but that would certainly be a safer way to access the site, and I think it would make it a little more harmonious with the surrounding areas.
So just so I'm clear on what you're saying, if you can see my cursor, is that about the general area that you're recommending?
Well, I'm not necessarily saying off the ramp, but if you were to come around and then down, then right in that corner, in there, that might be a way to get in, allowing, so you're not getting a high-speed ramp coming in. You make a turn and then in. you'd still keep your curb cut where it is, but you'd eliminate that conflict point of a left-hand turn off of the eastbound traffic on Fields.
But that, it doesn't work if you're coming from the east side of town along Sam I and coming in. There's no way to get there because you'd have to make a left turn onto Fields.
It's the same way that I have to get to the Carnegie, is I have to go all the way around through
Yeah, I know. I
Washington
try to get to
Grove.
Lifetime that way as well. There's no
Yeah.
U-turns, so you just keep going
Right.
around and around.
Right. But also it depends on, where is the customer base going to be for this? Is it going to be pulling from the south and north? There are car washes to the north on the other side of 270, which is really where people are going to be coming from anyway. So you may not have a draw from that direction.
We were aware that that was a potential issue, and I'm going to let Carl explain what he evaluated.
As part of a typical traffic impact study for the city of Gaithersburg, we look at critical lane volume. That's really just simply the opposing movements and the lane configurations that come up with whether or not it's above or below 1425. It's a very simplistic methodology. It really doesn't consider traffic control. It doesn't consider delay. It doesn't consider queuing. It's a very simplistic methodology from a planning perspective. In this case, we really did go above and beyond because of the concerns that had been raised. And we actually looked at the gaps in traffic for people turning left into the site from Fields, going into the site. And we also looked at the queuing that's currently occurring out there and projected the future queue lengths going in. That existing left turn lane is about 200 feet long if you're coming from Fields into the site. It's about 200 feet. We found that movement going into the site operates at a level of service B as in boy under existing conditions with about 13 seconds of average delay. And in the future, it goes to about 19 or 20 seconds at level of service C. So it drops in between the level of service thresholds, but it's still like less than 20 seconds of delay to be able to turn into that site. And again, that queue does not extend, beyond that 200-foot length. So it's our 95th percentile queue, which means that's about the maximum you're going to see is about 64 feet, about 3 vehicles or so turning into that site, waiting to turn in. The gap study that we looked at is taking a look at how much opportunity those vehicles actually have to turn in. So we actually measured how much time there was in between a car passing the intersection and then the next set of cars passing the intersection to see how much gap there was and opportunity for that to occur. There were, during the morning peak, there were more than 71 gaps at more than greater than 15 seconds, which means you'd be able to actually pass 2 vehicles through with a gap that long. And it was 62 gaps during the PM peak. So there's a lot of opportunity for the vehicles to be able to access the site with the existing access point that's there.
I guess for me, it's less about the queuing and it's more about the chance of a collision.
Mm-hmm.
We see a number of places where, people are making a run for that light, so it's really less about, on a Saturday, I will tell you from personal experience, it does back up. Just even trying to get into the Rio, even not necessarily there, but coming from the light to go into Rio or into Crown. But when you do get queuing, you start adding the additional volume that you're looking to add with this particular use, it's going to increase the chances for vehicle collision and conflict points. So if there's opportunities to remove conflict points from a design standpoint, it also makes it safer for pedestrians because they're looking at the traffic, they're not going to be looking for people to make that. So if there's a way to make that a right turn into the site, it makes it safer.
Well, and the other thing we just want to point out is that the volume of traffic, we're showing a available queue space of, I think, 34 vehicles, and that's a lot more.
On the site itself.
On the site itself.
Yeah, that does not bother me. I think that you're adequately stacking on the property.
Right, but the point I just wanted to make is that on a regular basis, it's going to be far less demand than that's coming in on an hourly basis. So, for the trip generation for the site, the number of cars that we're expecting is 20 coming in during the morning, 20 car washes during the morning peak hour, 31 during the PM peak hour, and 48 on Saturday. So it's not a tremendous amount of increased traffic that you're talking about here. So again, I just want to put some perspective that just because that queue space is available on site doesn't mean we're going to be having that much traffic coming in on a regular basis.
Okay.
Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna try not to beat a dead horse, a couple of horses here, because folks have already said some things. Thank you. What, as Councilmember McNulty just went through, I live across the street from the site, so that merge coming off of Sam Ike, turning right onto Fields Road, and attempting to merge into, turning left into that site, I do it often. Sometimes I shut my eyes and hit the gas. The traffic that comes off of Sam Ike, that turning off of Sam Ike at the same time, it's sketchy, right? It is today. I can't imagine adding additional traffic to that to get to an auto-centric site. It's definitely a concern of mine of merging the traffic that's turning left off of Sam Ike, turning right off of Sam Ike onto Fields at the same time, and then the right hand drivers trying to merge into that site. So I just want to reiterate, Councilmember McNulty went through it. I have that same concern. As Commissioner Kaufman pointed out, aesthetically, when we talk about the 1997 plan, when I read through it, it reads to me as mixed use and walkable, which particularly with the development of Crown, we have today, right? To introduce an auto-centric aesthetic to that current walkable aesthetic is concerning to me. Also, with the addition of Crown High School that's coming, we're going to have, and I assume you addressed this in your traffic study, the additional bus traffic that's coming, along with now young pedestrians, right? The pedestrians that we already have, and then we're going to introduce young pedestrians coming in from the high school. So I'm not sure if, and I'm going to stop and ask this question, if that was taken into the traffic study.
So for the traffic study, we did account for the background traffics that were provided by the city. And the Crown High School was one of the background traffic. So we have basically used the information from their traffic impact study and accounted for it into our document.
Okay. I'm actually surprised at the result. I'm not denying it. I'm just surprised by the result of the traffic study because I live those congestions all the time. So.
And when we do our traffic studies, we actually video the intersections. So we place cameras out there and we actually observe what's going on. That's how we did the gap study for this. I watched it myself, and watching traffic isn't always very exciting. And fortunately, we can do it in a faster speed. To speed up what's going on out there, but we're observing what's going on. So this report is just beyond, the critical lane volumes. It again is that relatively simplistic methodology. We try to look at it a much more broader approach and try to really look at the delays, the queuing, and the gaps that are available for that traffic to move into the site. So again, it's a relatively smaller use than the queuing on site would project, if that makes sense.
It does.
If I could comment on one thing as well. Irrespective of the use that is here, if you had another use that wasn't dependent upon people driving there for a car wash, for instance, I think the reality is, given its location as it relates to the surrounding uses, even if it were, think of your most pedestrian-friendly use that attracts walkers. The reality is that where this site is located, it's not going to get the level of walkers that we would like. It's just not, given where it's located. So if you think about it, think about your most, successful restaurant ever. People are going to drive there, and that's just the reality because of virtue of its location. This isn't downtown Crown. And so I think that's just the reality of the site.
Thank you.
Neil.
So I'm going to take a slightly different tack. First of all, unfortunately, we can't really go back in time and measure what traffic used to be there when the site was occupied by a restaurant. I used to occasionally frequent Ziki. My son learned how to catch a flying shrimp there. And I never found access to that site to be difficult. Unfortunately, we can't go back and find out I don't think we have any records of what the traffic counts were then. And they probably were a little different because the hours of use of a restaurant are going to be somewhat different than a car wash. But it was a reasonably popular restaurant before COVID, at least, and there weren't really any issues with traffic as a result. So I'm not really very concerned about that. I recognize that it's a difficult site. And the fact is, it's not Crown and it's not Rio. It's kind of in that in-between awkward space that is surrounded by major highways. So a use as a larger car wash doesn't seem out of the question for that sort of site. In terms of Councilmember McNulty's comments, I guess I had responded at the time, but I think the current cut is probably the best way to get in, given the fact that there's no U-turn signs at every available intersection. There's just no other way to get there without going completely around in a circle. I'm very interested in hearing what you come back with as a response to the questions that have been asked. I'm not entirely uncomfortable at this point. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. We'll go to Rob.
Not entirely uncomfortable.
It's a strong endorsement.
4 questions. I guess the first one's on the camera study, I guess, which you'd referenced. That's pretty novel. In your viewing of the footage, did you ever see Councilmember Henderson?
That's funny.
Busted.
Yeah, I try. But yeah, I mean, I've driven there as well. You know, it could stand with traffic improvements and perhaps engineering improvements off-site. But that's something I think to consider for the future. One thing I do note, and this is with the current use, as well as with Ziki, which I learned to catch a shrimp there as well. There's a lot of conflict coming onto site because the gas station traffic crosses across when the Ziki traffic makes a left, and now the prospective car wash use to be making a left. And so I would like to see more on taking the opportunity to deconflict that aspect, so between the two uses. Parking waiver, I didn't hear anything about, typically you come to a car wash, you drive your car through, you come out and vacuum stuff. There's no on-site uses from what I've seen. Are there on-site uses that would require parking other than, I guess, employees?
No, the 6 spaces are to accommodate the employees.
Employees, okay. And I do I was thinking the same thing as Commissioner Reed was thinking about, Field Road is being activated as maybe controversially to have bus-centric transportation around our mixed-use developments. They've occupied one of the lanes with the former driving lanes to be a bus lane that's red. There is a bus stop right there. And so there is at least an effort to put mixed modal transportation and perhaps have some bus transit coming through, therefore pedestrian transit coming through. I will note that the walk out to Sam Eig and around to Washingtonian, or the walk down to, and the road's escaping me now, it's fine for certain areas, but perhaps a pass-through on the site, like near the that side of the site towards the tennis courts, where pedestrian traffic could visibly come through and then exit onto Washingtonian Boulevard, if it's feasible at all, I think would lend a lot to potentially allowing for more pedestrian traffic between the Crown and Washingtonian. So just a thought, if it's feasible. I like that idea.
Can I ask for clarification? So
Yes.
sort of where the cursor is, you're suggesting, is there the opportunity to add a pedestrian?
Is there?
cut
Yeah, I don't
through?
know the topography. I don't
right.
know what the interest might be for
Okay.
the site owner. But I do know that if you want to head to the very far end of the shops in Washingtonian, you either go all the way out around that peninsula, or you head all the way down to, there's a light intersection about half a mile down, and then you can go to the roundabout that has that Yard House place. But, folks walking from the Crown, and again, I don't know. It just struck me as if you wanted to have a direct access, direct line of sight from the Crown into where the Coles is, you just have to walk circuitously to do so. But again, don't know the topography, don't know visibility. I just like the idea.
All right. We have gone through everyone up here. This is a public hearing. I'd like to hear from the public. Same rules as with public comments. We ask that you come up to the podium, state your name, address, or if you prefer your neighborhood. Keep your comments no more than 3 minutes. And if you have more than 3 minutes worth of material, use your 3 minutes and then send us the rest in writing. It'll be considered just the same. Do we have anybody who'd like to testify here tonight on this topic? Nobody. Okay. Well, then let me check on Zoom. If anybody on Zoom would like to testify on this topic, and Chad, that includes you as well. I actually won't time you because you're the applicant. So if you wish to make a statement, we'll give you a chance. But anybody on Zoom who would like to speak, use the raise hand function, and I will call on you. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands going up. All right. Then let me go to our recommendations for the record, and we'll go to the Planning Commission first.
All right, thanks. The staff recommends the Planning Commission make a motion to hold the record open until 5 p.m. on April 9th, 2025, that's 23 days, with anticipated recommendation to the Mayor and City Council tentatively scheduled for April 16th, 2025. Is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Mr. Mayor?
Okay, and our recommendation is that Mayor and Council hold our record open until 5 p.m. on April 29th, with anticipated policy discussion and final action on May 19th. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved. Second.
Well done. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 5-0. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to move to our next public hearing. Planning Commission, thank you all. And let me see. Rob Thiebert. Our next public hearing is on Chapter 8 of the Erosion and Sediment Control and Stormwater Management Ordinance. Welcome, Nancy, Rob.
How do I get?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. We're here for the public hearing to introduce this repeal and replace of Chapter 8 of the City Code entitled Erosion and Sediment Control and Stormwater Management. The notice for this public hearing is in compliance with federal and state regulations regarding public hearings. We have a brief PowerPoint to lay out the background for this, authorizing legislation and requirements that would apply to sediment and erosion control, stormwater management, supplementary zone regulations, stormwater program fee, and illicit discharge detection and elimination updates. So the majority of the changes and updates that occurred deal with definitions, clarification language, standards, inspections, and permitting, which all essentially align with the updated state and federal regulations over the last several years. Also, we made changes to align our code with the updated Chapter 24 code recently. Approved plans remain valid for 3 years from the date of approval. We added, in the event reference standards are inconsistent and do not align, that the most stringent requirement governs. And for the use of alternative stormwater management will not relieve an applicant from the responsibility of still providing safe runoff conveyance in that area. A stormwater management sketch plan can be submitted instead of a concept plan for the mixed development zone only. This is due to essentially the requirements don't really match up in this zone with all the other zones for a concept plan. So it's a little more broad requirements for this zone. Plan review submission deadlines were changed to align with planning and code. And inspections must be performed by a city certified inspector, which is there's a training program that the state issues where the inspector is a responsible personnel certified in sediment and erosion control. For the stormwater program manual, the manual is just mentioned briefly in the code, but we essentially updated that entire manual as well. We added property owner may petition for an adjustment to the stormwater fee if eligible for hardship exemption. We're also updating our stormwater facility credit program and our Rainscapes rebate program to essentially increase incentives in both of those programs for more resident participation. And also, a few weeks ago, we kicked off our common ownership community maintenance transfer program. And this manual now will include all those policies, guidelines, and requirements to participate in that program as well. And we added the illicit discharge detection, connection, and elimination manual as Article 6 in the Chapter 8 code. And all of those proposed updates will align with future city goals. Also, Maryland Department of the Environment reviewed our proposed repeal and replace, and they had us just update a couple clarification sections. The cumulative effects of projects previously granted extensions and the requirement to address stormwater management upon a phased disturbance of 5,000 square feet. So that essentially is when there's a phased development project that a permit's required once it hits 5,000 square feet. So if they do 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, technically if it goes up to 6,000, if there's 6 phases, that'll implement a permit for those projects. Constructed projects under 2,000 regulatory guidelines may be granted a waiver. All new phase developments are subject to meet environmental standard design to maximum extent practical. And we also included a reference to section 24-12.4D of the city code regarding mixed development for stormwater management sketch plan to include, or essentially to align those requirements. And we removed section 821D to align with COMAR regulations. This section it deals with waivers which are no longer valid, and that statement has been removed from COMAR regulations. And that's all. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. This all, I think we'll have a question or two, but this all seems like good housekeeping to me, and I appreciate it. Jamil?
Sure. There's one of the slides talked about certified city inspectors. Can you just I know we just an introduction here, or what? Or how many are there? Is there a shortage of them? Plenty of them? You know, like.
So we do have, we have one who is certified with the city planning division, and we have several others who are certified within environmental services. So this is not a difficult standard to attain. It's an online training through both SHA has a yellow card, which is a little more advanced, and then there's a basic responsible persons card, which is also an online training.
And like as I read through the packet, you know, there's puts and takes to align with like state law that's changed and other pieces. Can you like contextualize? Did we add more permitting process, or we took away more permitting process? What's the net effect of all the put and takes for new applicants coming into?
So we really aligned with the standards.
Okay.
So we've been under the auspices of updating this chapter for several years. There was staffing changes and a whole bunch of other things. So we're really aligning with the most recent standards from the Maryland Department of the Environment. So we're bringing it up to that code.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just want to ask Mr. Mayor, so thank you both. Before I was on the council and was on my HOA board, I was talking to Tenacious predecessor about the common ownership handoff and the stormwater there. How are we doing outreaches to the common ownership communities about the possibility of taking over existing facilities?
So we have contacted every HOA that has best management practice
Stormwater
facilities, right, stormwater facilities on them and within them. And we held a public meeting on February 26th to, so that they could come and have additional information, but we have been in communication with all of them. I don't think anybody didn't respond.
I will just say that in the bureaucratic world, whoever decided to name stormwater facilities best management practices should be fired. I mean, it's like the most, it's so generic, it's absolutely meaningless. So they couldn't have done better than that.
It started in 1999. But
Yeah, maybe they're no longer working, which would be fine with me.
they were at the time the very best.
Do we have any other questions or comments? All right, not seeing any recommendations that we hold our record open until 5 p.m. on Monday, March 31st, with anticipated policy discussion and final action on Monday, April 21st. What is the pleasure of the council?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. You think these guys have been through public hearings before? They just want to race to it. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have from the mayor and city council, and we are going to start with Jamil.
Was really excited and happy to attend the St. Patrick's Day Parade, even with the weather cooperated. And that was it. That's it for me.
Okay, excellent. We're going to go to Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The parade was a blast. Felt like we were in Ireland with the mist. It was a great turnout. Felt like we had more people this year than last, and I think we had more participants too. I don't know what the official numbers were, but congratulations to all the staff on that. Also want to congratulate Corporal Vanderford on her promotion and all the award winners this evening, and as well as our new committee members, including my wife, who will be joining the Gaithersburg Book Festival Committee. I know she's already been enjoying the meetings that she's attended and excited to be a part of it this year. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. We'll go to Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fantastic, always 23rd annual St. Patrick's Day parade. I love that parade. So even with the rain or cold or snow or whatever we get or beautiful weather, it's a great day. Congratulations to all the police awardees. For all that you do. Thank you for running towards danger and keeping us all safe. So thank you very much. And I should have wrote it down because I just lost my train of thought. I wanted to, I'm done.
Well, if you think of it, just,
I can come back.
Nudge me. If
You
you think
sure?
of it. Sure. We'll go to Neil.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to say that I attended and really enjoyed the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I was shocked at the very high attendance, considering that the weather was not as good as it could be. but really great turnout, and everyone seemed to be having a wonderful time. I'd like to congratulate Transportation Committee member Larry Seeger on his reappointment. He was a long-time member when I joined the committee 10 years ago, so he's got to be 15 or 17 years into this role. He's been an active member of the committee for all that time and DJs our Bike to Work Day every year. So I would like to thank him for his service, and I will do so the next time I see him. I'd just like to make the viewers aware, if they haven't heard of the county budget issues. We're going to discuss the proposed city budget in a short while. And it's the 11th budget that I've had a chance to participate in, and the 11th budget where there's been no increase in the city property tax. The county is once again looking at a proposed property tax increase from the county exec of 3.5%, but also an enormous increase in the fees for trash collection, which I just went back and looked through the records. In 2020, my bill on the property tax bill for the solid waste was $243. The following year, it was $1,160, and we're looking at about a $350 increase to me again on top of that. So the bill will have gone up about 500% in just the last few years. So it's hard to believe that solid waste disposal has become that much more costly, given that the facility that processes that waste hasn't really changed and appears to be very efficient. So I'm very disturbed, and I will let our county representatives know that this just seems very difficult to justify at this point. I'm very disappointed in our county exec for this particular move, and hope that other people express that as well. That's it. I'm mad as heck.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. Also, I wanted to thank you for bringing up Larry Seeger and recognizing him. He has been a leader in his community in Fernshire Farms and a member of our committee for a long, long time, and absolutely deserves the recognition. We'll go to Rob.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, thank you and congratulations to all of our officers, as well as all of our appointees today. Just want to say, as I think the only one with Irish blood up here, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. We're
Only
all
one, huh?
Irish today.
Only one.
Okay. Before I get into my comments, I just want to go back. Did I forget to go to the public on the stormwater? Okay. Is there anybody in the public here who'd like to testify on the stormwater? I guess I just kind of assume, because there's never any testimony, but that's not the point of a public hearing. Is there anybody who'd like to testify on that topic? I could not hear that. So let me just go to Zoom. Is there anybody on Zoom who wants to testify on the stormwater topic that on our stormwater ordinance? Okay. I'm not seeing a hand go up. Okay. Then we will get back on track, and I apologize for that.
Can I make my comment?
Yeah, go. You remember what you're going to say? Go ahead. Go ahead. Sure.
I just want to say congratulations to the Benjamin Gaither Center and the Senior Advisory Committee for marching in their very first St. Patrick's Day parade. So congratulations to the team.
They came out in force.
Yeah,
That's
they did.
true. Okay, I will add to the chorus of congratulations on the St. Patrick's Day parade. It was terrific, and yes, the attendance was excellent. Also wanted to note that I was able to go and represent the city at the Montgomery County's Iftar dinner a week ago from today. And I wanted to remind everybody that on May 17th, we're going to have our glorious Gaithersburg Book Festival. It's coming up at May 17th, Boer Park, and some of the best authors and journalists, educators on the planet coming to speak about their latest work and meet people and sign books. And it's going to be awesome workshops. All details, well, a lot of the details are available now. Some will come out, in the next 2 months, but most details are available right now at GaithersburgBookFestival.org. And in terms of upcoming sessions, we will have Next week, we have a work session to receive a presentation on the schematic design for the 12 South Summit Avenue building renovation, and as well as a mid-session legislative update. Those are pretty interesting, cool subjects. We will not have a work session on Monday, March 31st, and the next regular meeting of the Mayor and Council will be on Monday, April 7th, 7:30 p.m. For all of these meetings, you can participate in person or on Zoom, just as usual. Next, we're going to go to from the city manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nothing to report this evening.
Okay, thank you, Tanisha. And I have been told by Tom that he's passed it. He's going to defer on the economic development update. So we're going to move to ordinances, resolutions, and regulations. Janice Hartman, our Director of Finance and Administration, welcome. It's budget time.
It's budget season again. So, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm here for the introduction of the ordinance adopting the city budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, and levying an ad valorem tax on all accessible property within the city of Gaithersburg, Maryland. Each year, the city adopts its annual budget and financial plan. The ordinance, starting on packet page 790, is a draft of the proposed ordinance that is used to adopt the city's budget and its tax rates. Before final adoption of the budget and tax rate, the city takes the following steps. Tonight, we are introducing the budget ordinance. Staff then prepares a public advertisement of the budget. This ad is scheduled to be posted in the Washington Post on March 20th, which is this Thursday. Staff prepares the online budget book, which will be published on the city's website on March 28th, 2025. A public hearing is held for any public comment on the proposed budget. This is scheduled for April 7th, 2025. The city's FY26 budget proposes the real property tax rate of 0.262, which is the same rate as the current year. Since there is no rate increase, the Department of Assessments and Taxation does not require the tax rate to be separately advertised or an additional public hearing to be held. The Mayor and City Council will hold a budget work session on April 14th, 2025, and if needed, an additional work session on April 15th. The record for public comment is scheduled to remain open until April 23rd, 2025 at 5 p.m. It is anticipated that the budget will be brought forth to the Mayor and City Council for consideration of final adoption on May 5th, 2025. During the public hearing, we will provide the budget process overview, which highlights key changes during the FY26 process and provide highlights and an overview of the proposed budget. Then during the work session, we will do a deeper dive into the budget details. We encourage city residents to attend and participate. And at this time, I'll ask that you announce the public hearing on Monday, April 7th, 2025.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments? It's an introduction. If not, would someone like to move to introduce? Neil, do you have a question?
Yeah, not a question, a request really, just to make sure that in the next discussion of the budget that you show clearly what the fund balances are expected to be in the various funds, because we have a really large transfer to capital improvements, and I'd like to see where that's coming from and what impact it has on our fund balances.
Yes.
I think that's normal. I just want to,
It's larger than usual, but yes.
bigger than usual. I understand why. I just want to see how it works out.
Great. And while you're at it, would you like to move to introduce?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, we will be looking forward to our public hearing on Monday, April 7th.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next we have from the city attorney, Frank.
Thank you. Just very briefly, I know I've sometimes given some what seems like bad news in terms of this executive order or another, but I do have an example to show somewhat along the lines of what former Congressman David Trone said when he was here, that the work at the municipal level is often just about serving the community. Eric and Wyam, two assistant city attorneys who were actually behind me when I was sworn in here a few weeks ago, worked on getting an administrative warrant in order to ensure that folks in a condo unit were all able to have heat, really at a very cold time of the year right now. Maybe not seem quite as critical, although I think it was 48 this afternoon, but this was when the temperature was in the 20s. And with their work, They got an administrative warrant filed. Many local governments have not had to do that. This is really the third or fourth that we have done. Not that we've been especially lucky, but it's a service we can provide as a way to get something taken care of. They didn't actually have to get a judge's order, but it seems likely that their actions behind the scenes in getting it filed and moving forward made it clear the city was ready to act. Access was gained, and within a short time, people had heat where they didn't before. And it just is a demonstration of the kind of very direct work that we do at the municipal level. It's the stuff that really does matter. And so I thought I would give some good news for everybody as opposed to sometimes just bad news.
Appreciate that.
So, thank you.
We love good news, and that is really excellent work.
It was indeed on their part, yes.
Anything from any other staff? Not seeing anyone jumping up. Okay, well then I'll remind everybody, we have join us next week, March 24th, for our work session to receive presentation on the schematic design of the 12 South Summit Avenue building, which may one day be our new city hall, and a mid-session legislative update. Again, we will not conduct a work session on Monday, March 31st. The next regular session will be on Monday, April 7th. Let me just see. We have council in the community on Wednesday, March 26th at South Lake Elementary School. I don't recall exactly which neighborhoods that's supposed to cover, but anybody's welcome to come to that. That's at 7 p.m. at South Lake Elementary School. And I think, I'm not missing any events, right? I want to make sure I promote all the events. I think we got to be.
Festival?
Yeah, it's like May 20th.
Yeah, by the way, the book festival. Okay, with that, this meeting's adjourned. Let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We'll see you soon.
Recording stopped.